and you got the whole lot today. This is vk3sl, and we're here. Yes, a very good afternoon to you, Frank. Hi, and yes, made it in. It was all happening at 5 o'clock. I had phone calls and interviews, and it was just this mad scheme. And I was thinking, I would much rather be doing the missions than be doing all the school stuff. And anyhow, had to deal with all of that, and then a late start. And so, yeah, here we are at last. Yay. So
after much running around, obviously.
Yeah, it was. It was the veritable sort of race around the block. But look, that's all right. We've sorted now. I've been trying out a few little small changes in the system, in the program, and or in the processing side of things. And I'd be interested if anyone's listening on AM whether or not they can detect any differences. I can control how much I'm clipping or limiting with this Innovonics system here, and it actually gives me quite a lot of control. And I've been looking at it on the during the skirt, so just before I was looking at it on the screen on the local the TLW SDR. And it's interesting to see the characteristics change, but the clipping would make it sound very harsh, but probably cuts through better at distance. And I can also do asymmetric mod on this, which is something I'd like to look into.
Good evening, Steve.
Yeah, hi Frank, how are you?
Good evening, Frank.
Yeah, I'm interested
Good evening.
know, does it sound any different to you, Mr. Mr. JR?
No, but I wasn't listening too critically.
No, that's okay.
So, let's hear a little more when you like, and
yeah,
we'll give it a listen.
Yes, certainly. Look, what I can do is I'm going to turn the clipping right up now. So this is.
I think clipping added to that barrier mix is the last thing you need. It's got about 100% anyhow.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that. All right, perhaps we won't go with the clipping. I can turn it the other way though, and just limit. So there we go. That's on full peak limiting now. And so it's sort of a soft edge rather than the clipping edge. Maybe that's a more satisfactory. It looks like it's a lesser signal on the SDR, but maybe it's a more palatable one, perhaps. I don't know. We'll keep it at this for the time being. It certainly looks less. I can make a few other changes downstream if need be. But there we go. That's on the limiting extreme. So yes, I'm just trying to get to know this processing unit, which I've had for a while, but I sort of had it on a set and forget mode for FM, and now I'm thinking, well, perhaps there's room to explore it a bit more comprehensively. But yep, thanks for the feedies back there. All right. Well, as I said, it's on the limiting extreme at the moment rather than the clipping extreme. And I don't know, I can control the modulation, the symmetry of the modulation as well, which is something I might explore another time perhaps. Anyhow, so there we go. That's the system stuff. And so welcome to all parties. And what I might do is see if we've got some 20s music to kick off today.
Yeah, just before you go, so what are you modulating the B-mits with?
The Heising modulation.
What, it's built-in modulator?
No, not at all. The PA amp.
Oh right, yeah. I think probably it's got that funny crossover distortion, probably due to low drive. I think.
Right.
It's got that sort of bad. It sounds like a bad narrowcast station up the top at the end of the band. All the bass is sort of crap,
Okay. Okay, interesting. All right. Well, I don't know. I'm just using a filament transformer in reverse and the a Heising choke and a couple of very big capacitors, and that's and feeding it that way as I have. I mean, I could make a few small adjustments.
Look, it's fine. Look, listening on the SDR, it sounds fine. Of course, they cut off at 4K.
Yeah.
But listening on even like a reasonable receiver, it sounds absolute shit. But no one's listening on that, so it doesn't matter. So I wouldn't worry. And particularly when it gets on Skywave, it's just all over the place anyhow.
Yes, that's true. That's true. All right. Well, fair enough. I mean, I'm happy to make any small adjustments to for those half a person listening on the on a dedicated system.
Depend. Like the FM is quieter.
Yeah.
The AM in tuned in, it's not as quiet, but it's a lot easier to tune in.
Yes.
It's not fiddly. It's they've both got advantages and disadvantages.
Yes.
But I think the fact that this time of the year, when you are being heard interstate, the FM, I mean, last year if you were running AM, I would have heard all your stuff perfectly up in Queensland, no problem.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it's just 20 kilohertz of just
Yes,
distortion.
yes, I know. It was just mash. Unfortunately, outside Melbourne suburbia. Well, now UHF is more robust. That sort of takes care of the local material.
Oh, the UHF quality is superb, amazing.
Oh, that's encouraging. That's one good thing.
No, it sounds really good.
It would be nice to fine-tune the AM side of things. I don't know what else. So you think drive? Well, I don't know. A different PA amp maybe.
Well, no RF drive.
Oh, okay.
See, the thing is, what I've found is, if you put tone on
Yeah.
at, say, 80%, and you adjust the plate and load controls, that makes an awful lot of difference to the distortion.
Yes.
And the drive control, there's a sweet point where the drive, you listen and the distortion just drops out and comes back again. There's a sweet spot.
Yes.
And usually it's massive amount of more drive than you're meant to run.
Mm.
It's what you saturate the tube with RF.
Yeah.
And there's a point where as you turn up the drive, the RF output will go up and it'll start to back off a bit.
Yes, I know what you're
usually
saying.
that's the point for the best distortion.
Yes.
And yeah, so that's
Okay, that's interesting. Well, I think we all know the inherent issues there, and yes, I think the buffer and the drive are both sort of substandard and not optimised.
It's like an RF, audio thing. I mean, unless you've got to have more than enough, and a lot of the people who hear on AM, you think that this haven't got enough drive. It's just, if you look at it won't modulate linear mode unless the drive's just right.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And that's the fiddly bit about transmitters and stuff, just getting it right.
Yes, I noticed that in your experiments you're using a Codan and a signal generator at a Codan so you could get plenty of oomph, and then you obviously to scale
Look, I stick about 2 watts into an 807.
Wow.
And,
okay.
The grids don't seem to melt, but it just makes it, and it doesn't take off. It does all the good things.
Very good.
And you put a meter in the drive thing, so you've got to do all that.
The dark art of RF loading.
Yeah, and you can make something work, but to make it work, really well is a different thing.
Yeah, fair enough. No,
and
look, interesting.
You're modulating with a carbon mic, who cares? But if you're putting good audio in it,
Yes.
that's that sweet spot. And the plate and loading and the relationship between the capacitance and the inductance makes a big difference too.
Yes, okay.
All those little fine bits and pieces which you sort of can work out mathematically, but you really have to just do it experimentally because it's all just it's all practical sort of thing.
Of course, it's all interrelated, of course, as well. So there's
It is, and it takes hours and hours to get it right.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I remember watching your vids, your experimental vids there, and I've never seen so many jumper leads in my life as a crocodile clips, and everything was interconnected and you were finding that optimum setting. But that's most interesting. I did notice, and I think you still do it now, is use a Codan to give you the extra solidity with the RF drive. So
you'd have to make a matching network to go into the Velvy, of course.
Yes, you would.
50 ohms to whatever, 1,000 ohms or something to the Velvy.
That's right.
But just a coil and tapping. Yeah, look, the best thing I think is just put, say, 400 hertz modulation, about 80%.
Yep.
And adjust everything just by ear when the distortion drops down.
Yep.
And it's, even a crap speaker, doesn't matter. You can just tell when the distortion minimises.
Yes.
And that's what.
Yeah, that's good advice. I did. One good thing is I've got a modulation monitor out there as well, so I can. Well, it's built into the system. And the other day when I was just first shooting this up, I did muck around to find the sweet spot, but I've since used it for other things, and I just sort of had it on set and forget. Yeah. So maybe there is potential to optimise the loading, to some degree, but maybe. Yeah.
It's sort of, in a good transmitter, if you look at the modulation monitor and the oscilloscope and listen by ear, as you turn the tone up, you want, say, 400 hertz, because then the harmonics are really audible.
Yes.
1 kilohertz, they're not that audible at 2 kilohertz sort of thing.
Yeah, fair enough.
So 400, you wind up and it should be totally clean until the oscilloscope shows it's hitting the end.
Yes.
So it's totally linear up to all the distortions actually caused by overmod.
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
Yes.
And most transmitters, over about 80%, they start to sound really crap. and that's gives them that mushy shit sound.
Yes, I know what you're
people
saying. Yep, that's it. No, it's well explained. It's good information. Well, yes, I think really to move forward comprehensively, I'd have to go from the ground up. But look, anyhow, that's okay.
Look, it's good enough, and it's proving the point. And if people are listening in the state, there's so much distortion that it's irrelevant anyhow. In fact, you could clip it to the house like you used to do on 80, and it sounds terrible locally, but who cares, you know? But to clip like that, you really need a linear transmission system. Otherwise it sounds really crap.
Yeah, otherwise you're just loading one problem against another, and it just becomes intractable.
Of course, a lot of broadcast stations had old transmitters badly lined up. When they run up to modern stuff, it just sounds terrible because they can't take that extra punch of audio.
Yes, I understand. No, that's good information there. Thank you for that. All right, well, we'll find some way of moving forward, but there's it's all a learning curve as far as I'm concerned. Thanks for that, Dave. All good. Well, nothing else to report in the R&D department. How's you been busy at the coalface?
I've been reasonably busy doing stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, because I built another 807 emitters for 807s, and it was quite a neat little thing.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. So I thought, well, I'll rebuild it. And so it's nice and neat and nice solder joints like Barry stuff. It doesn't work at all. It just takes off and carries on. So, you know...
You don't angle the wires and get
It makes all the difference.
You got to knit together little wiring looms?
I think this is the most perfect thing I've made, and it didn't work.
Oh, you say you need to get that special wire, that...
that Waltham's wire.
That Waltham's wire.
With the spotted cover, yes. 1950s Waltham's military wire for rockets, it was.
That's right, and the and that dental floss they used to wire it, to loom it all together with a little thread in between.
I should have done that. That would have been.
That's right, and the little, you got to put a red dot on your solder when you've soldered each little point. You got to put it.
Yes, that's right.
I reckon that's why it didn't work, because you didn't put the red and blue dots on.
I've got some nail polish.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, it's obligatory, really.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Yep, that's what they say. Well, that's what there's a lot of discussion about crosstalk and wiring looms in telephone exchanges and things like that, because everything's just too neat.
Yeah,
and a big jumbled mess is perhaps the better way to go.
That's right. It's all random. Random house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I might do some R&D on. I've got like a 6CM5 tubes, because they're worth nothing, and they only run on low voltage, 300 volts. So if you get a few 100 watts out of a few of those, that'd be fun. And they're cheap as anything.
Okay. So that's another tangent. Oh, well, good. No, we'll look forward to getting the R&D updates.
So the beam, it's obviously hasn't popped or anything.
No, it hasn't popped. It just it hums along, literally. Look, the driver stage is the RF driver, as you mentioned. The buffer is the 6v6 is arcs half the time, and you've got to get the right spot, otherwise it zaps and makes all sorts of horrible noises.
I reckon just drive it from a Codan from a DDS. And then just go straight into the grid and of the 807.
Yeah, but I'd have to do an impedance match, wouldn't I?
Yeah, just a little coil and taps and things. It's just not too hard.
Oh, I might need to look at that.
And then you've got plenty of power to work.
Yeah, then it would all sort of work. I mean, look, it's not overheating or doing anything ridiculous. It seems to now work for a 3-hour go. So
look, those power supplies could take 1,000-watt emitters, so I don't think they're going to get hot.
Yes, I think they're fine. That's the strong point about the whole system. But
it's probably got that hot valve smell in there.
Yes, it does. and they sing. You go out to the garage, and you can hear the emitters singing away. Yeah. So. That's what's happening. Yeah, well, that's probably a better way forward, but I'll have to investigate a bit more. But yes, certainly some good ideas there. Excellent. All right.
Yeah, well, looks like you'll be doing this for a few months. If not
yes,
years,
that's right.
So
a few more years. Yeah, we'll just bunker down and just gradually ossify and just do nothing but missions and grow old. And yeah, I know, it's just crazy. I don't even want to look out and beyond. Just got to have a bit of fun. So what we might do is we might have a 20s hit. I think there's been some good 20s hits up online lately. Mr. Holmes has been busy putting interesting things up. And so why not, let's have a recording of Jack Hilton and the band, and this is one I never knew anything about. It's called Pardon the Glove, and it's from about 1926. So let's have a listen. vk3sl testing. Jack Hilton and Pardon the Glove, a hot recording from about 1926. It's vk3sl testing on 160 and also on UHF. It's 438.725 megahertz and streaming online. So you can go to the YouTube station, which is my call sign. It's a dedicated YouTube space where there are logs of previous programs for nobody to listen to and the live missions from today. It's all there. Anyhow, just testing and finding out what happens next. All right, we'll go to the non-list, and there's been a few interesting uploads today. Another is the interesting dynamics of Mr. Lorenzi and his Rhythm Maniacs. Maniacs being the operative word, and we'll hear, yes, Mario Harp Lorenzi, and the sound of a harp in a sort of syncopated ensemble is quite an interesting sound. vk3sl.
celebrating. Everybody come and join the celebrating. Meet the sweet one, the one I adore. Salute the sweet one, this party is for. Bring your girlfriend, bring your boyfriend. When the night ends, how happy we'll be. Then we'll have one final toast to the one I love the most, celebrating the fact that he loves me.
Mario Lorenzi and the Rhythmaniacs, and that was Marjorie Stedford, of course, a very recognisable voice, our own Marjorie Stedford, an Australian, and she had a very low voice for a woman. I thought it was a male singing, and then suddenly it dawned on me, yes, she was a regular with Mario Lorenzi and his ensemble.
I think you've had her on the late night missions.
Yeah, we did a special. In fact, Jamie had some wonderful recordings of Marjorie Stedford when she came back to Australia in the 50s, and she did a program on 3DB called Strings. And yeah, that was fantastic. I'd love to have some of those episodes. I might have to twist Jamie's arm. It'd be great to have some of that. As
Won't have to twist too hard, I
Well, it'd be great to get some dubbings. That one we played, it would have been early days, probably nearly a year ago, but it was wonderful. And she was a great talent. She had a fabulous spirit and but very distinctive tonal quality to her voice.
Very much so, very deep.
Yeah, unusually so.
Very masculine, as you say.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, interesting. So Marjorie Stedford there, and when she was in England. She was in England for most of the 1930s by all accounts. But, yeah, interesting story. Anyhow, so we're just sort of sampling things here, playing Nostalgia to air, as we do every afternoon, especially during these COVID times. And as Mr. Stu said, we could be here for a very long time. So
You may well be right.
yes, we'll come rusted on to our chairs and just grow old gracefully doing missions.
What a way to go.
Oh, yes, that's it. And we all find our little microcosms, crawl into our holes, and while all this other stuff's happening around, everyone's beating loud drums out there. No, well, there are better places to be, that's for sure. And, yeah, we might play some more Bach later on. I listened to that recording last night that I mean, a lot of what I put on I only sample and I listen to it properly when we go to air. And it was a recording of the Bach's fourth cello suite, the E-flat major suite. It's the one I'm practicing a lot at the moment. And it's a really tricky piece to play. It's because it involves lots of extensions and very fast finger maneuvers. It's sort of not natural. It doesn't fit naturally under the hand. So it always sounds a little bit disjointed. Even the best players in the world can sound a little bit lumpy. And but interesting that the great Spanish cellist Casado, who we featured the other night,
Oh, yes.
he recorded the Bach suites in the 50s, and he recorded this particular suite, the F major suite, the E flat major suite, in F major. He moved it up a tone to make it much easier to play, and it sounds so much better. It just sounds in orders of magnitude better at the higher pitch. So I think that's the way it should be. But
It's awkward when a composer writes for an instrument that he doesn't play well himself.
Yeah, I think that's a common issue, and unfortunately, we get all manner of sort of estrangements because the composer just doesn't understand the instrument properly or writes for a six-fingered hand.
I'm not saying that was the case with JSP, but just as a general sort of comment, that would be right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, look, I think some keys work better than others, but back in the day, people were very happily changing keys at whim. It's just in our very tight conformist age that we tend to do everything by the book. Whereas years ago, if you felt more comfortable playing it in G major, you'd play it in G major. No one would care. Exactly. So, people were very comfortable adapting things to what their strengths were. And whereas now, that
is wokeness applied to music.
Yeah, totally.
Woke? Sort of woke, isn't it?
Yeah.
Political sort of correctness.
Yeah, definitely. So yes, that's the situation. But anyhow, I did listen to that yesterday and I thought, wow, I'd love to sound like that. So we'll keep practicing. But there's lots of music happening in this household. I think we're all finding refuge in our instruments here, and it's been a good thing. I think we're all sparking off each other. Kate has been practicing all day. She's done about 6 hours of flute today.
That is superb.
And all day I've been hearing Mozart concertos piping through. I've had to teach, but I've been quite happily enjoying in the background quite a lot of playing. And they're playing now. They're into the Bruckner cycle, so they're playing Bruckner symphonies inside. And Kate and Henry are trying to do a symphony a day. So it's a lot of playing, a lot of sight reading. And I'm not a very good sight reader, so I tend to get really frustrated. I've got to study something before I play it. I can play it, but I have to read it through first. And I just can't read it off the page.
I don't understand how anyone can.
Oh, look, it's a special skill, and it's a skill I've never mastered. And when I used to do a bit of freelancing, I just had to work so bloody hard to be able to keep up, simply because I just don't read naturally. I'm a little bit dyslexic, and I find that the notes jumble around. And it's no big deal. It's not a huge hindrance. It's just meant that if I play professionally, and have to do gigs, I've just got to practice really hard.
Yeah, sure.
So that's just the way it is for me. Other people can sight read anything. I never forget when I was in London, I had a stay with a cellist, and she had to sight read this piece on the radio, and it looked like someone had sprayed paint on the page. It was the most complicated looking score with micro time signature fractions. It changes every half bar. It would just be. I just don't know how anyone in this world could read it. But yeah, that was the music. It had to go to air with I think one rehearsal. So it's a skill, and you can learn it. But it takes a massive amount of discipline, and I'm just not skilled or too lazy or both. So that's my plight. But yeah. But once I commit it to memory or to my ear, I'm fine. But reading things off the score is a slower process. But Kate's a fantastic sight reader. She can sight read anything. But she could read before she could read music before she could read words. So she was given sight reading.
You're just a born musician.
Yeah, well, she was lucky. Her mum used to just give her pieces every day before she could read. So she's developed the skill from a very young age. So and Henry seems to have as well. He seems to be really good. He's very good at maths, so I think that helps. Yeah. Whereas I'm hopeless at maths. I like the idea of maths, but I'm something doesn't gel. All of the symmetry and the elegance of maths that people rave about, it just doesn't seem to line up for me as much as I'd like it to.
I liked maths, but I didn't take it very far.
Sure. Yay. Anyhow, that's the story. So, yeah, just a few musical samples. So we'll find something else Bachian, I reckon, later on. I might play another one of these suites from Mr. Casado. And because I'm really enjoying listening to his music at the moment. I'm rediscovering him as a player since those interesting performances have turned up on YT.
Cool.
Yay. But anyhow, look, I reckon it's time for another TikTok. We've got these transcription records. There's a whole stack of these 16-inch transcription records.
Oh, good, yeah.
And we've been sampling those little vignettes, shorts.
One that was on the other night, you were asking me about who was in them.
Yeah,
I can't understand why, but one of the older woman in that one that had the two women was, of course, Queenie Ashton.
Oh, was that right? How interesting.
Came to me later.
Yeah, very good. Okay, I'm aware of Queenie Ashton in her later guys because she sort of had quite a prominence in TV soaps and things like that, didn't she, in the 70s and 80s? Okay, very good. So that's where people started. I know Bud Tingwell did stuff too, didn't he, at around that time?
Yep.
Yes, I know he was one of the Thunderbirds.
We have the whole series of the Thunderbirds.
Yes.
My son bought them cheap from someone was selling them at his work.
Fantastic. I must admit, I've got the DVDs. I've got one DVD set here of about 6 DVDs. And we always take them on holidays. Well, the kids are sort of grown out of them now, but I've never grown out of the Thunderbirds.
No, you never will. I used to watch them with my dad in the 60s when they were on.
Yeah.
And when my kids were growing up, I used to get up at 6 o'clock with them on Saturday mornings and watch them.
Fantastic. Oh, what a dad. That's a great thing to do. Oh, look, I think they are just amazing. Super marionation. Yes, that's right.
That's the one, Frank.
But the best thing was the score.
I still, to this day, whenever I open and close the remote control garage door here, I still feel like I need to have that music playing and a set of palm trees that fold down either side as I drive in and out.
As Thunderbird 2 prepares to take off.
FAB.
Yes, FAB indeed. Oh, I'm inspired now. We're going to have a Thunderbird series. They work well together.
I think Elon Musk should immediately, over his launch thing, install a sliding swimming pool.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
I'm sure anyone who has a spare couple of billion, that would be a very, very good thing to do. And with a massive infrastructure, I always think of the 84 floors when I hear when I see all the underground world of the Thunderbirds.
That was wonderful. 84 floors, Frank.
You've heard that missions, haven't you?
No.
Oh, it's in the archive. It's an early one.
An early cross band.
Yeah, an early cross band. In fact, Mr. Eggs.
Tony and Joe.
Yeah, Joe.
YSP, as he then was. He's got another call sign now.
Oh, does he really? Okay.
Yeah, he's very quite active with his wife.
Yes. And they were very involved in school stuff. And I think since retirement, he's done a lot of portable work. And he turns up to those QRP by the Bays activities as well. So we see quite a bit of him.
There's another one called Concrete Missions.
Yeah, that's probably better.
I think it is.
Yeah, it is, because the whole room fills up with concrete. It's fantastic. Yes, they're my favourite cross bands. I quite like those. Anyhow, yeah, back to the Thunderbirds. I think the score, I should remember the name of the composer because I did a whole lot of reading about him recently. But he just writes so well for orchestra, and they're so out there, they're so over the top. And
well, I'm wondering, because it's Thunderbirds is Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, isn't it?
Yes.
And see, they were also a couple of the seasons that went more sci-fi, like for instance UFO.
Yep.
And then Space 1999 and the like thereafter, and which also had really good thematic music, albeit different. I'm wondering if it was the same composer.
I think so. I think he had a lifelong association with the Andersons, and but he's just really gifted writer, just in that realm. He just knew how to write good tunes, orchestrate really well, get the high drama. Just, he wasn't a John Williams, but he just had this great skill to carry the story, and it works so well in every sense. It's marvellous. So, now you got me inspired. I'm going to look up and see if we can find an episode of the Thunderbirds and play the... So yes, very good.
I think they're about 20-something. We've got them all anyway. So.
Yeah, I possibly have the same set because I went out and I had to order it from overseas, but I got this big set of Thunderbirds and we watched them ad nauseum. And but I've never lost. I always I still enjoy them.
It's a cult following, you know.
It is a cult following, and I too used to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but I didn't have anyone with me. Well, my sister used to get up sometimes. And,
I would have got up even if I didn't have anyone with me.
yeah, good for you. Yeah, it was such a great experience.
I just had the call, unfortunately.
You've had the call, never the mind. Well, look, we'll put a TikTok tail on, and I'll be hanging around for a little bit tonight. So
I'll record it.
Yeah, we'll put a TikTok on and then see where that goes. But I'm going to see if I can at least find the theme music. All right, let's hear a TikTok. Oops.
Cheers, Frank. Cheers, Steve.
I think we're in the groove.
3JR, vk3sl. Have a good evening.
Espionage
Yes.
Rain provides the clue. There was a worried frown on the brow of Inspector Wally Warren of the Special Branch as he turned over the last page of a lengthy report marked Priority Secret.
The case is sewn up, Sergeant. We know everything we want to know, but we can't prove a confounded thing.
That means we're practically back where we started.
From information received, we know that the top-secret jet fuels formulas are getting into the hands of foreign agents. That the man receiving them in this country is Debrimsky.
Find out for that crocodile there. Professor Debrimsky, eh? Very clever man.
So far, he's far too clever for us. We've had him tailed 24 hours a day for the past month with no result. Yet we know it must be him.
How about the man on our side?
Well, there again, we whittled it down to one man. A young laboratory assistant, Clive Daunt. We've had him tailed, too, but we can find no connection between him and Debrimsky. They've never met, never spoken, or even passed near each other the whole time we've had them under surveillance.
Perhaps they're not our men after all.
Well, they've got to be. There is nobody else.
You said Daunt and Debrimsky had never met. Have they ever travelled on the same bus or train?
No, if you're thinking they might have passed something to each other, no. The only time they've ever been seen near each other was on a couple of occasions when they had a meal at the same restaurant.
Well, now we're getting
No, we're not. I thought the same thing. But two of our men were on them the whole time. They neither looked at each other or spoke. And they sat practically one at each end of the restaurant.
Perhaps a third party, a waitress.
Double-checked and drew a blank.
I still think, sir, that the solution to this case is in that restaurant.
And that's why I called you in, Coleridge. You're new to this branch. You're not known here. And you're smart.
Thank you, sir.
Go to that restaurant and stick to it as long as you feel there's a hope. Link up with Hennessy. He'll give you every assistance.
It was a hot, sultry night, and as Detective Sergeant Coleridge sat in the restaurant for the 5th day in succession, he began to wonder whether, after all, he was on a fool's errand. True, Debrimsky had come into the cafe several times. He was there now, seated in the far corner. But of Daunt, there had been no sign.
Looks like another blue duck here, Hennessy.
Been like this for the past 5 weeks, sir.
I think I'll take a stroll.
I wouldn't go now, sir. It's raining cats and dogs. Haven't you noticed?
Been too busy thinking. It was fine when I came in.
Look, sir. Daunt. Just coming through the door.
We're going to a table 50 yards away from Debrimsky.
It's the way it's always been.
Debrimsky is leaving. Follow him the moment he passes us.
Shall I send someone back to you?
Hold on, Hennessy. Don't follow him. Arrest him the moment he gets outside. I've got it. I know how they do it.
You mean to...
Quick, after him, Hennessy. Take him to Inspector Warren's office. I'll be there with Daunt the moment the rain stops.
Here they are, Inspector. Debrimsky and Daunt. Close together at last.
You've got nothing on me.
This is an outrage. I demand an explanation.
I hope you know what you're doing, Sergeant.
Look at them, Inspector. Debrimsky is wearing a wet coat. Daunt says dry.
So?
When Debrimsky entered the restaurant, it was fine. When Daunt entered it, it was raining. Yet Daunt is wearing a dry coat.
You mean they've changed coats?
Exactly. Easy enough when they were hanging side by side on the rack. So plain to see, yet it took a shower of rain to show me. I'm sure you'll find some useful information in the pocket of the wet coat. Excuse me, Professor.
So you see, rain can provide a clue. The obvious is always hard to see. It's so obvious. Be back soon with another story that is different. May I have your attention? Thank you. You've been listening to TikTok Tales, a John Craig radio short.
Indeed you have, and we have quite a few of these at hand, so we'll exploit them on the afternoon missions. They're good fodder because they are short and sweet. So there we go. And slowly getting through these 16-inch discs, and we've got the 3KZ material all up now on my normal YouTube channel. So if you go to Langley Cello, which is the main one, you'll find there are quite a few 3KZ rarities, including an Oxford show and a few other things. The best one is the episode of Mr. and Mrs. with Norman Banks, which we did play to air a few weeks back. Anyhow, testing, of course, that's the name of the game. There's nothing else to it, really. It's just an indulgence, and we don't pretend to be anything else than what we are. It's just a meander. So, in line with what we've just been talking about, let's hear something voluminous.
4, 3, 2, 1. Thunderbirds are go.
And of course, it's Barry Gray. It's the other B, Mr. B, not the B Mitz B, but the Barry Gray B, who wrote the theme for the Thunderbirds and lots of other.
The other good thing in that too, there's the incidental little sting that would play, you know,
Yep.
just that little bass line thing.
Yes.
It's always a
Yes.
do, like some of those.
Yeah.
Another one of my favourites for that too were things like the Addams Family and the Munsters.
Yes.
And their little incidental bits that would play in the
Yeah.
they're really
Yeah.
they're great bits of writing, aren't they?
They are great bits of writing, little polyfiller moments to sort of set the scene, give you that sort of extra nudge. Yeah. But he does it so well. He's great at creating sort of theatrical tension with the writing. And I never forget there was that. Remember that episode where the spaceship goes into the sun? And they're trying to sort of beam up a tractor beam to fire the retro rocket.
Vaguely, yeah. Wow.
So the rocket comes back to Earth, and they're slowly melting on their way into firing into the sun.
As an aside, I do love in thinking about that now, and you just remind me, of course, because the fact now that the probe that they've sent to orbit the sun for a while.
Yep.
And monitor it.
Yep.
Got closer than anything ever has before, and it's called the Parker Solar Probe. And of course,
that
the
what it's
character
called?
It's someone else, but the fact that in Thunderbirds it was Parker, which just cracks me up.
It does. That's brilliant. I like it. Oh, they've got to reference the Thunderbirds somewhere in our space science exploits. Gosh, yay! Well, in that episode with the things going to the sun, he's got this great sound of a beam, it's just like a single pitch, and it's really high. It's about a 2 kilohertz tone, but it's sort of whenever they're trying to shoot the beam towards the to fire the retro rocket, so you get this beep, the sound, and it's got great suspense, and it's just so masterfully interplayed into the whole thing. And to think they're just working with puppets, and they could create such comprehensive stories. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that's it, and that's why also I love as a movie, because it's that same style, and it's just as a comedic piece of gold, is the Team America World Police. Have you seen that?
I haven't.
Oh,
No.
really?
No.
Oh, you must.
Okay. Team America.
It's a little dated because it relates to Kim Jong-il.
Oh, yes.
So, Un's father, when he was alive, and it was all about, Team America, thinking they're the world police and rah-rah, and it's all done in marionation a la the Thunderbirds. It's
really?
all puppets, but every single thing in the entire movie is a piss take.
Oh, is it?
Everything's
really?
a piss take.
Oh, my gosh.
There's a musical thing in there, you'll pick it. There's a little band in a Middle Eastern tavern, and it's a piss take on the Star Wars Cantina thing. And it's just, everything's full of gags, and to the point where on the special edition disc, of which I've got here somewhere, there's the extra stuff that you get, and there's an interview with Trey Stone and Matt Parker, so the guys that came up with it. because Kim Jong-il was actually quite a big film buff,
okay,
they sent him a copy, and actually their hope was that they would get nominated for a Grammy for Best Original Score because they were going to invite him to sing the lead part, and when you see it, that'll make sense.
Okay, fair enough.
And the entire end part of the movie, or a big sequence, which is a pageant, again, apparently was based on a real event, which was when Madeleine Albright was Secretary of State and went across to North Korea, and Kim Jong-il wrote and choreographed this entire huge pageant thing in her honour. And so that whole sequence in the movie is kind of loosely based on that.
Really?
Yeah,
so
it's really worth a look. It's good fun. Family sit around and watch it. It's just hysterical.
Oh, that sounds good. Now, you referenced another Captain America thing recently too. You told me about another film, the one with the nuclear bomb. Something. Oh, yeah, that's all right. No, there was another one you mentioned or something.
Captain America.
Yeah, was it that? Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter. But do send me a link because I'll put it on my link list, and when I get my life back,
Team America, World Police.
Team America, I mean, yeah.
It's so much fun.
World Police, sounds good. Yeah, any film that takes the piss, that's what films should do.
And in these times too, it's just it's something
we'll
to sit around and have a good belly laugh over.
Yeah, definitely. We all take ourselves too seriously. I won't get on the Star Wars theme, but I have to say, the first Star Wars, there are some great lines in that movie, aren't there?
And that whole thing, it's just, you look at what it is and look at the content, or rather the basic storyline, and it's one of the old swashbucklers, isn't it?
It certainly is.
It's an old Errol Flynn movie kind of remade.
It is, yep.
In a science fiction framework,
Oh, it certainly is. Whenever we go on a bushwalk and we're going through a tight bit of rock formation, we always come up with that line. It looks like we're going to be very thin.
Yeah.
Was that effect?
Yeah. Harrison for you. We're all going to be a lot thinner.
We're all going to be a lot thinner, that's right. Yes.
Charming girl. Where'd you find her?
Yes, that's right. That's a great line.
Oh, look, the banter of... And the funny part was that... probably gone on these days, that at the time when I read some stuff, is that Mark Hamill was actually the bigger actor at the time than Harrison.
Really?
In some respects. Yeah, he was kind of more well-known for some bits and pieces. But Harrison, then obviously went on to do, Raiders and all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah, he certainly did.
Because prior to that, he'd only really done American Graffiti and maybe one other, I think. So.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because he used to work as a carpenter on the lot.
Okay, yeah. Wayne's just said Team America is very, very not suitable for family viewing. Okay.
Oh, there's probably one bit, but it's...
Yeah, that's all right. Well, no, I'll preview. I'll do the, make sure that we do our... pre-watch and censorship viewing, but it's interesting. Now, it's like there's another a family fave at the moment, which the girls are sort of into 60s stuff, so they love that film, The Boat That Rocked. So whenever we go on a holiday, they always bring that one along, and because it's all about pirate radio, but that's also got a lot of scenes. Which
the old 60s are probably even just the old 60s Bonds, the Connery era stuff too would be good because they're they're pretty amazing films.
They are. They're excellent. There's a real suave. There's a style about that. What's the Bond movie when they go on the old Princess Elizabeth, the second? Is it The Man with the Golden Gun? It's the one when they go on the ship in Seaview University. I think it was Queen Elizabeth II. A ship that was sunk in Hong Kong Harbour, and it was.
Oh yes. Is it Golden Gun or is it On Her Majesty's Secret Service?
Oh, it might be that. I'm wondering. And they go down into the bowels of this wrecked ocean liner.
He steps off, and it's an entire MI6 base.
That's right. Inside.
That was on telly recently, I think.
Was it really?
I saw it. Yeah.
I love that scene. I just think that's just so classic. The whole business of using a massive shipwreck for for good purposes. Excellent. All right. Well, I'm going to look up Barry Gray now. Barry, B-A-R Gray, G-R-A-Y, I suppose, or whatever. Here we go. British musician and composer. Let's find out about Mr. Baz. What else did he do? And he's got a boring upbringing, very British. But, he did Thunderbirds, A Go, Thunderbirds 6, Doppelganger, composing style, using lots of brass, certainly does. Centenary concert. Oh, it doesn't give us a lot of information. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Captain Scarlet, Space 1999, Joe 90, Supercar Fireball, and the Cult Files Reopened is another one of his.
Yeah, so he did obviously a lot of Jerry and Sylvia stuff.
Yeah, he seemed to be his main sort of thing. I think he must have worked in tandem. Stingray, did some Stingray episodes. So, yeah. So, the music of Barry Gray. I'll see if I can dial him up in that sense and see if we can find the Barry Gray music. I've got to do dinner in a minute. So, I'll listen to Barry Gray while I'm doing the turning the sausages. So, let's see. We'll look him up. Barry Gray music. And can we find something that's long? Here we go. Pod 96, Barry Gray, Music Maestro. Oh, that's a Jerry Anderson YouTube thing. Could be good. 60s electronica. No, I want to see big orchestral stuff with, we've heard the theme. There's another one of Barry Gray themes. Barry Gray Orchestra. Lots of Thunderbirds. Christmas on Tracy Island. I've never heard that one. Yeah, all right, well, look, here we go. Pod 69 says Barry Gray, Music Maestro. We'll give this a burl and see what happens. It's quite long, so we'll see if I don't know if it's a podcast or what it is, but it might reveal something, maybe, and we'll save our buck for tomorrow night. So that could be good. So there we go. Barry Gray, Music Maestro. All right. It looks like this is like an interview or something. Okay. Oh, here we go. Wayne's has said Doppelganger, Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. Is that right? Earth? It disappeared. Where are you there, Mr. W? Yes, Far Side of the Sun is a great theme. Yay, Doppelganger. We'll look that up first, then we'll watch the other thing. Doppelganger. Yeah, have to have some movie nights again, if we're allowed to. Maybe we have to have virtual movie nights. Doppelganger Journey. Here we go. Dialing it up. And Jerry Anderson, here we go. This is the primer, Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. And, it's quite a bit in this. Well, we'll give this a burl. And we'll have a listen to this for a bit. And then I'll refer to the other doco and we'll ride out with that for today. So, Frank, thank you for your company. And thank you, other Frank. Thank you, Mr. Stew. Thank you, Mr. W. And we'll take our leave with a bit of Barry Gray inspiration. So, let's find the file. Looking it up now. It's on the list. Here we go. Doppelganger. Well, let's start with that, and then we'll go to the Pod 69 Barry Gray after that. This is vk3sl testing on 160 and on UHF, streaming online, and here we go, off to Bazland. listening to the masterful compositions of Barry Gray, Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, from the film of the same name. And it's been recommended to me, so I'll pass on that recommendation if anyone's interested. And celebrating Barry Gray just sort of serendipitously came up out of the conversation and before, and we'll continue on that vein for the next little while, as there is a doco. I think that's what it is, anyhow, so it deserves to be heard. So let's cue it up. Here it is, Music Maestro, Barry Gray, and I'm vk3sl, testing on 160 and on UHF.
This episode,
Richard reveals his new segment.
Terrorhawks Day is 1010.
Chris faces unbelievable horrors in the randomizer.
And a special archive interview with Barry Gray.
That's all coming up in Pod 69
of the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James. Here we are again.
Hello.
It's the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
You are
Richard James, and you?
Jamie Anderson.
And
we are your hosts.
Yes.
For the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
Which will last approximately
75 to 80 minutes.
And will include
things about Gerry Anderson.
That's all you need to know. Yeah, here we are. Pod 69, which is quite appropriate, the year of my birth. So, happy birthday me. Again.
Oh, happy birthday. The perfect time for you to reveal your new thing.
Yes.
Do you want to mention that very briefly now?
Yeah, let's do that. A special segment on the podcast starting this week is The Plot of Peril.
Nice.
Yeah, so we'll be coming back to that a little later, but it's an opportunity for listeners to get involved via email, Facebook and Twitter and write their own Gerry Anderson plot. How's that?
I mean, it sounds fantastic, but,
what?
I don't know. Mm-hmm. So you've built the plot device called the plot device,
that's
right? And that's going to randomly deliver
3
Gerry Anderson character.
That's right.
An everyday item.
Yes, and a location.
Okay, so it could be, for example, Dr. Helena Russell, a spatula, and Tenerife.
There you go. Now,
is that the sort of thing we're going to get?
Episode of Space 1999 just crying out to be written.
Okay, well, that's not the plot of peril for this week. It was just me.
That's quite a good one, though. What did you say?
Making some stuff. No, you're not using that. Well, it's random from your plot device anyway, isn't it? Anyway, look, Richard, we don't want to just talk about the plot of peril, as exciting as it sounds. We'll get to that later on.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most important things to say about this week coming up is what's happening on the 10th of October.
Oh, there's a clue in the date, isn't there?
Yeah, 10-10.
10-10, yeah.
Any ideas?
Is it something to do with Brian Blessed? Normally is.
It's one show where Brian Blessed was not involved, but there was another loud male actor.
Must be Terrorhawks.
Windsor Davis, yes. It's Terrorhawks Day.
Yeah, great.
I mean, we're not taking it with the seriousness that we took last week's Thunderbirds Day, but 10-10
that wouldn't be appropriate, would it? Because Terrorhawks is in no way as serious as Thunderbirds.
It didn't take itself serious, no. But 10-10 is Terrorhawks Day. There'll be some stuff happening for that. It's a great time for you to get into Terrorhawks if you haven't got into it before, or to relive some happy, nostalgic Terrorhawkian memories. I'm not sure that's the right adjective, but there we go.
Yeah, from Terrorhawk.
So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that just in a little tiny bit.
Yeah, great. Also, of course, we've got the randomizer coming up, and we've got some a special archive feature with Barry Gray that I know a lot of people have been asking for, haven't they?
Yes,
over recent weeks and months.
Thanks very much to Ralph Tisterton for that, and also get well soon, Ralph, because Ralph had a little accident a few weeks ago and did himself quite a mischief.
Yes.
But on the plus side, that has given Ralph some extra time to dig out this fantastic archive interview. In fact, it's 2 pieces, which is quite exciting. One is an archive interview from a radio interview that Ralph did with Barry many years ago, and the other is from a convention where Barry did some singing. So it's really interesting. It's the kind of, the interviewed side and the entertainer side of Barry Gray all in one package. So that's rather exciting.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
Great. Nice.
Before we get there...
Okay, what I'll do is I'll do a Fade-O-Matic there because that's all too high octane for me. And if anyone's interested, there is the Jerry Anderson podcast up there on the tube under that name. But I want to hear about Mr. Gray, about Barry Gray, and I think I've found the sweet spot. So let's see if we can cut to the chase.
Oh, let's do that.
Perfect. Barry was a composer of many of the amazing themes and incidental music for most shows from Twizzle right through to Space 1999 Year 1. I think Barry sadly died in 1984 from memory. So there's not a lot around, but thanks to Ralph Tiston, friend of the show, we've got these fantastic pieces. So you've got an interview that Ralph did on a local radio station many years ago, followed by Barry's appearance at a convention in the 80s where he was supposed to have a piano. Unfortunately, the piano wasn't there, but Barry made do and sings some fantastic variants of well-known Jerry Anderson themes.
Great.
So here we go, over to Ralph and Barry, and more Barry.
Barry, can I ask you how you first began working with Jerry Anderson?
Well, I was introduced to Jerry by, shall we call, a third party. I had done some arrangements and compositions for Decca Record Company, which she was associated with, and she also wanted to produce a small twee children's puppet series which she'd written, and as Jerry Anderson just had his AP Films company at this time, she went to him for him to make the series. She'd try and get it off the ground. Well, I think she had more or less got it off the ground with Associated Rediffusion as it was then. And when it came to music, she said she would like me to do the music. It was actually, in this particular instance, it was the musical direction and arranging. A solicitor friend of hers who was an amateur musician had written sort of little themes for these were children's sort of things. So it was really virtually putting these into shape and doing the musical direction and the arranging. And this is how I met Jerry. I did the first session with Jerry, for Jerry, shall we say, on September 1956, which is 23 years ago this year.
And which series would that be?
That was The Adventures of Twizzle.
I was told that you heard somebody whistle the tune and you had to write your arrangement from that. How true is that story?
On that particular series?
Oh, that or Torchy?
No, on that series and Torchy, I got the tunes just hummed. I don't think whistled, but hummed on a tape recorder, which were accredited as being compositions of this friend of this lady's, but I had to put them in shape and arrange them for the orchestra and conduct the sessions on both those two series. That was The Adventures of Twizzle and Torchy the Battery Boy.
On one of the programs, the opening sequence, I'm thinking of Stingray, is a very complicated thing to see visually. Do you have to look at the pictures and then compose your music, or is the pictures made to the music you've written?
No. What they call the final print is the print that you work from. In our case, everything was done. Dialogue and visual was done only before anything. That was all. Then the music and sound effects were done afterwards.
How difficult is it to produce something like that?
Well, it's like anything else in life with people. Anything is not difficult if people know how to do it, or if they have a flair for that particular thing. In my case, music has always come very, very easily to me. It's something that I live with 24 hours a day. And I also work very well under pressure. If I've got to have something ready for tomorrow morning, I would have it ready for tomorrow morning. I wouldn't have to struggle, to do it. It's just something you've either got or you haven't.
The opening music there from Stingray. The theme Barry is most remembered for is the now famous Thunderbird March. I went on to ask if this was his particular favourite.
It's one of them, but of course I've done 12 series with Jerry. My favourite, shall I say, opening title from all the series was a series that's very, very little known. It was a series that was only shown on, I think, Midlands TV. A series called, it followed Joe 90, a series called
Secret Service.
Secret Service. There was some political, shall we say, machinations went on about having it on network, so it never went on network. It was only shown on Midlands when ATV just got Midlands, I think it was.
I know this particular thing was completely different from everything else that Jerry had produced.
Well, it's got a rather interesting little story to it, because this was a series, semi-comedy, but also to do with spying. And it was the first time that Jerry had used a live actor with puppets. And they made a complete model of the actor and his car, which was a Model T Ford. And they had a real Model T Ford, and they also had a small model, radio controlled. And as it was a play on the word service, the Secret Service, the main secret agent was a vicar. And this is how it came about. And it was Jerry's idea for me to write something in the style of Bach and get the Swingle Singers to do it. The Swingle Singers were very big at that time. And cut a long story short, I went to France to see Ward Swindle and try and get it set up. But the cost of their fee was so exorbitant it just wasn't on. So I came back and we did it with the Mike Sam Singers. In fact, I wrote the idea for the 3-part fugue that I did on the plane coming back.
How much influence did Jerry Anderson have on how you went about composing and arranging the musical score for each series, Barry?
Jerry has some idea the type of music he wants, and he works very closely with you on the first episode, or rather on the pilot episodes as it might be, and then after that you're on your own, but initially he has some sort of idea that he'd like to, something in his mind. Although he's not knowledgeable about music, he is very musical as far as the type of music that he likes and the type of music he thinks is right for that particular episode or film, whatever it may be. In the case of the film Thunderbirds Ago, he said that he wanted to get a real symphony orchestra sound, and he said, what's the least amount of musicians you can have to get a really, symphonic sound? So I said, well, you couldn't do it much under 70. So he said, 70 you have then. So for that particular film, I had to conduct a 70-piece orchestra, which was thoroughly enjoyable and remarkable. Very, very good.
Was that the same for the Doppelganger film and for Space 1999, the first series?
No, the Doppelganger, that was a Universal picture, and they wouldn't stand for any more in the orchestra. I think it was 56. But we got a very similar, full orchestral, symphonic sort of sound. And 54 for the opening title of Space 1999.
Can we talk a bit about your musical training, Barry? What musical training have you had?
I had a full classical training. I studied from the age of 5 till I was 22. I took initially, right from the start, when I started learning piano, I was with a theorist who was very, very keen on manuscript paper, and he was very keen for me to go along with the manuscript paper just as much as going along with the playing, which was a great thing. I'm North Country, of course, and I studied with a professor from the Manchester Royal College of Music for a time. I took harmony and counterpoint with him. I studied with the Doctor of Music at Blackburn Cathedral. Then later I took composition with the Hungarian composer Matyas Sárba, who's very well known in our business as being a very versatile composer. He did the score for such films as Animal Farm, and he was a specialist in cartoon writing. And A Town Like Alice was one of his films that he scored, and several other things, but a very knowledgeable, marvellous teacher and composer. And unfortunately, he was tragically killed in a car crash on one of his world conducting tours. So, but my mother and father were both, very, very musical, and they gave me every possible encouragement as far as, the whole household. Every day was music ringing from rafter to floor,
Which composers have influenced you most?
Do you mean of what are termed classical composers?
Yes.
Would you say? Well, I studied Bach a lot with Matyas Sárba. I've got there's nobody like Bach for writing contrapuntal music. That was a great influence. I was also very fond, when I was young and studying, I was very fond of the Impressionists like Debussy, Ravel, and Satie, these sort of composers. I studied a lot on my own orchestration. I did Rimsky-Korsakovs and I did Berlioz. I was greatly influenced by Rimsky-Korsakov's book on orchestration. But I think a general feel of the whole classical amount of classical music there is, it always has some influence on you when you think about it. But I've always been a very strong advocator of a composer doing his own orchestrations. I don't go along with, like they do in America, a composer does the score and then they can bring arrangers in to do the arrangements, because I think the arrangement is part of the composition. A composition is virtually a sound when you've finished with it, isn't it? And you couldn't imagine a Beethoven symphony being scored by somebody else, because you wouldn't have the Beethoven sound.
vk3sl. Is there one classical piece that you like above anything else?
Well, I wouldn't say above anything else. I'm very fond of many of the impressionistic pieces of Debussy. I'm a great admirer of Ravel as an orchestrator, particularly pictures from an exhibition by Mussorgsky, which brought more fame to Mussorgsky through Ravel's orchestration than it was as it was originally written for piano.
Music from Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition. Do you have any modern influences?
You mean, when you say modern influences, who you...
Over the last 10, 15 years?
Not really, only as far as doing electronic music and working in a broader sense with synthesizers and phasers and things like that, things that have now come. But in most of the electronic music that I did in our series, most of it was done the hard way, because there were no synthesizers then anyway. But the first time I used a synthesizer, which is very difficult to say, was UFO. And I got one of the first synthesizers in this country, which was made by a British firm called EMS. And I used a synthesizer on that series. and also on the following series, like Space 1999.
What have you been doing since Space 1999?
I've been writing some film library music. I haven't been writing anything specific for any films or TV series like that. I'm working on at the moment an LP for America, probably all our themes and, you know, a potpourri of the music or main themes from not just title themes, but some of the themes that have been used in the body of many of the series.
And what about the future? Have you got any plans for the future?
I've got no particular plans, you know. If I'm asked to do something, I'll do it gladly.
Do you think you'll work with Jerry again?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you. That's a $64,000 question. It's probable. It may not. I may not. You know, don't know. You can't tell.
I'll have to leave you on that. Barry Gray, thank you very much.
Great pleasure.
Without further ado, Barry Gray.
Hello again. Well, there's a famous saying about the doodahs of mice and men going corrupt, and that seems to be what's happened to us, because I was supposed to have a piano here, but we couldn't get hold of one, so all my good deeds and anticipations have gone for a Burton. So I'm in your hands. I'm standing here, and you've got to go along with me, and I'll do the best I can without an instrument. I'm not talking about organs. Anyway, as many of you know already, Jerry and I have been friends for 26 years, and during that time I had the privilege of composing the original music for 10 TV series, arranging and being MD on 2 of his very earliest series that he did for somebody else, and also composing, arranging and directing the music for 4 feature films. Most of those you know, and the whole association has been a very happy association right the way through. As you can imagine from what I've told you, I've been in the music profession, radio, TV, film profession, since Julius Caesar came over. And it wasn't very easy at that time trying to chip out scores on a bronze tablet. It was very difficult. But I've had many questions asked to me today about how you compose and how did you get the idea for this theme or that theme. And I would say that it is just a flair that you've either got or you haven't, and you work in a certain way. In the case of, for instance, Fireball XL5, there was a production meeting at Slough to decide what type of music it should be on the series. And Jerry was very keen to have space music on the beginning and space music at the end. But the general feeling of the rest of the production team said we should have something a bit poppy on the end, and this was decided. And driving home to London from Slough, I got the idea and wrote the Fireball song. The way I work, if I'm writing a song, I always seem to write the lyric at the same time as I write the music, so I get the two together. In the case of the Thunderbirds theme, that was slightly different. I should have got up and made some tea. My wife said, "Get up," which I didn't. I lay there thinking, and I was thinking about Thunderbirds, and I got the Thunderbirds theme sort of floated along. Before I started to make the tea, that was. In the case of the Secret Service, Jerry was very keen to get the Swingle Singers to sing the main title, and he asked me to go to France to see whether I could arrange to get the Swingles to do it. Well, Ward Swindle had a manager who was a Frenchman, didn't speak much English, and I only speak a little schoolboy French. So between us, I got a quote for the Swingles to do the title music. Phoned through to Jerry, who said okay, although it's a bit high, but okay. When I went next morning to sign the contract, I realised, I'd asked him to have it done in English, I realised that he'd put in the contract that it was only for British Isles use. So we'd asked for the world use, so we couldn't use the Swingles. I got on the plane thinking about the series, and the idea of what some of you will know as a three-part fugue, the title music of the Secret Service, came to me in the plane. So this is how you go along. I've always believed in a composer myself writing his own arrangements, and in the case of film composers, conducting their own scores at the sessions, although there are some composers who have other people to do the conducting. And speaking of conducting, there's a very cute little tale of Sir Thomas Beecham, who came to conduct a rehearsal at the Queen's Hall, just getting ready to rehearse, and he looked down the row of bass fiddles there, and he pointed to one man. He said, he said, I don't know you, do I? And the chap said, no, sir. And Sir Thomas Beecham said, what's your name? He said, Ball, sir. Thomas Beecham said, very singular. Anyway, pardon me. Yeah, think about it. Anyway, as I was saying before, we haven't got an instrument here, so I can't sing, I'll tell you that now. But I'll try and put over to you the type of thing that I had in mind when I was going to have a piano. This, of course, should... Pardon? This, of course, should be
from vk3sl
with accompaniment all the way through. But I'll do my best, so go along with me. The name of Jerry Anderson is known throughout the nation. His own particular expertise in supermarionation has earned respect throughout the world, an obvious deduction. But let's go back over 20 years to his very first production. in Four Feather Falls, Four Feather Falls. That 1958 release, when Jerry cut a dash but didn't have much cash. My orchestra was only 6-piece. Then Jerry's next production was Supercar, Supercar. He went to see ATV, and there the storyboard displayed. As interest grew, he showed it to Lou, and Lou said, "This will make the grade." Then Jerry's next series, here's a slight variation on the end title song. I wish I was a spaceman, the fastest guy alive. I'd fly you off to Fanderson in Fireball XL5. And in the bar at the Bloomsbury, we'd chat and get all gooey. And then we'd drink a fireball, a fireball. That's a gin and tonic with vodka, ice and Drambuie. We'd talk about Steve Zodiac and never mention sex. We'd cheer old Derek Meardings for all those special effects. We'd laugh and chat together merrily in the gloom and drink another fireball, a fireball, then stagger away and try to find our room. Then Jerry's next, of course, was Stingray. Stingray, you've all seen that anyway. And then Marina. They all loved Marina. Though she was dumb, she knew how to swim without taking a breath. If I'd seen her, I'd have married Marina. 'Course there's one thing for sure, she would never talk you to death. And then, of course, we had the great series that went around the world and is still going round, which is rum, 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 rum. Okay? Sunday you'd see all the kids were gathered around in herds round the TV just to watch their favourite Thunderbirds, thrilled by the show with the sound of trumpets, horns and drums. But all of us know that the biggest fans were all the dads and mums. And then next we had, with the lifelike puppets, Captain Scarlet, boom, 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 always looking. Captain Scarlet, boom, 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 always looking for mistrons, searching the skies, and all the beautiful angels laying the guys. They were prancing around Venus and Mars, entrancing like Hollywood stars. And then next we had Joe 90. What a boy, there was no one could be cuter. An electronic king who could solve anything with a brain that could rival a computer. And then we had the one I mentioned, of course, the Secret Service, which was a one of those. And then we pass on to a very important one, particularly tonight. You know what it is when I start it. UFO. Jerry's first live action show. How I did enjoy it one certain night. I went drinking with Commander Ed Bishop. It turned out to be a bishop. As a matter of fact, about 11 o'clock that night, Ed turned to me and said, "I'm going now." He said, "Why the hell don't UFO?" And finally, we had Space 1999, which if I'd had a piano here, I was going to play a sort of fantastical concert version of the theme. But finishing off this sordid saga, I finish it off like this. But memory has the knack, so it appears, of increasing one's reflection. I often look back over the years with a good deal of affection. It was an honour, very, to work for Jerry. And finally, I'd like to say, here's to his success, and may the good Lord bless his new production down at Bray.
Well,
isn't it lovely?
Well, indeed, that was Barry Gray, and the composer of so many 60s English sitcoms and space adventures, the Super Marionation, and his long association with Jerry and Sylvia Anderson. Yeah, he's sort of very dry, isn't he? He's quintessentially British in every sense. But anyhow, that was an interesting little expose. A little bit on the dry side, but, you know, it's interesting how someone who writes such vibrant, extravagant music just sort of had the opposite in their sort of mode of delivery. Never mind. Oh, it's all fun. That's the way people are. And let's have a listen as a closure for tonight. Let's listen to Barry Gray's composition, Captain Scarlet. Captain Scarlet. And we'll say cheers for now. This is VK3SL and wishing you a very good evening. Until next time.